3 years. Over 3 years ago, actually, I first talked about Undertale on this channel. Now, you're probably all informed by this point on what Undertale is, how it works, and presumably aware of what spawned from it. When I first talked about the game way back when, I proudly gave it the title of Best Game I'd Ever Played, with an addendum later to Best Game I'd Played as of that year. And you know what? I said that because I actually had some trouble identifying why I liked it so much. I just knew that the experience resonated with me on a very deep level. Plus, if you only skip to the end for video verdicts, best to tell you now that my opinion has changed and I can safely say that it is not the best game I've ever played, but it's definitely one of the best experiences you can get out of a video game. If you don't understand what I mean by that, then sit back and relax because this is going to take me some time to explain. The video will contain spoilers for all versions of Undertale, so if you haven't played it but are interested in story-focused games, then there's my recommendation for you. But before I talk in depth about the game, let's retread its history. The humble beginnings of Undertale date all the way back to 2013, where a Kickstarter for the game launched with a goal of $5,000. In order to give players an idea of what the game was like, Toby Fox, the game's creator, included a demo that was roughly a half-hour in length, covering the entirety of the ruins section of the game, including the pacifist and genocide options. Because of this demo and Fox's notoriety among the Earthbound community for creating the Halloween hack under the alias Radiation, the Kickstarter blew its original goal out of the water, raising over 10 times the asking price. 2 years later, on September 15th, 2015, the full experience of Undertale was unleashed onto the world, now garnering a 92% on Metacritic and being commonly talked about as one of the best games released that year. Since that time, now putting us at the end of 2018, Undertale has received loads of merchandise, PS4 and Switch ports, physical copies of those ports, and even a sister game. Those are things that I honestly strive for and respect Toby so much for being able to accomplish. Now, those 3 years ago, I gave my own thoughts, and I really loved the game my first time through. Taking an objective stance beyond my first time with it, however, has my growth as a storyteller and even a reviewer changed my outlook. While I can't say just yet, I do still love the game even after playing it close to 9 times. Of course, I played better games, but I'm not here to compare. This game is no beast to tackle like Kingdom Hearts or Mario Odyssey, but there are a ton of intricacies and little things that I do want to talk about in this video. If you want to see my original thoughts, then feel free to check out that video I made all that time ago. It's really one of the first videos that I was actually proud of, and has since been my best performing review. And you know what? I still really like it. Aside from the flowy part.
You want some love?
With that said, it's time to do my final true reset on this game and talk about it for what might just be the last time on this channel. That's okay though, I'm ready. Huh, didn't expect that. Neat. Okay then, it's time to look at the game with a fresh pair of eyes and a brand new outlook. Let's begin! A long time ago, 2 races ruled over the earth, that of humans and monsters. Because the humans feared that a monster could one day absorb a person's soul and gain immeasurable power, a war broke out. However, the humans used their strength to seal the monsters underground, and while no human casualties occurred, the lives of countless monsters were lost. Using 7 of their best magicians, the men of old sealed the monsters under Mount Ebot. This brings us to the year 21X, in which a child, canonically named Cara, climbed the mountain where no one who trekked there had returned. Because of an unfortunately placed route, the child fell and fell and fell, somehow surviving their fall into the underground, thus beginning this story. Right from the outset, we see the bed of flowers that landed our fall, with the map not so subtly nudging us to the right. Here we meet everyone's favorite plant boy, Flowey the Flower. Of course, we all know that he's a lying son of a gun, but something that I commend Undertale for is its ability to take tropes that were all too common just a few years ago and throw them out the window. By either running into or avoiding Flowey's friendliness pellets, you get the same results, but with wildly different interactions. Regardless, right before he kills you and takes your soul, a mysterious fireball appears, knocking Flowey off the screen. Nice. This woman here is Toriel, the caretaker of the ruins and a mother figure to the children who fell down Mount Ebot. It's not long until we reach her house and seek a way back home, but just before we're able to leave, Toriel tells us about Azrael, the king of monsters. If we were to meet him on our journey, which is a guarantee considering he's where the exit is, he will attempt to kill us and steal our soul. To prove our strength, Toriel engages with us in a battle to show that we can survive the dangers of the underground. If you've spared every enemy you've encountered, as was encouraged up to this point, then the battle is just a matter of dodging her bullets, which is incredibly easy, as when your health drops too low, she will never directly attack you. However, in the genocide route, it's a very tough battle in which... Oh my gosh! Yeah, you already know through painstakingly grinding out everything that this isn't going to be the fun route. Honestly, I wish I felt more, but my shock and sensitivity was left at my first time doing this. Flowey's responses to your actions will be very different depending on what you do. While in a neutral route, he'll merely taunt you and or guilt trip you, which may provoke you to go back and try again. This is a very interesting aspect of Undertale that's gone overlooked in recent times, but I think that it makes each playthrough just that little bit more interesting and keeps replays until you get a full pacifist or genocide ending from getting too stale. Whether you do pacifist, genocide, or even a neutral run, Undertale is meant to be a game of expectations and breaking down concepts that have been so heavily established. Breaking the fourth wall and being postmodern now is nothing new, but it did seem to set a trend for games after its release to be more daring with their stories, challenging their players' perceptions regarding both how a game is played and what story can be told. But what's an RPG without some gameplay? And this is where I noticed a lot of people's experiences with Undertale have varied. In Undertale, the main source of your game time is going to be put into battles. Lots and lots of battles. If you know what Soho or any bullet hell game is for that matter, then this setup should be familiar to you. As an RPG, you may feel the urge to kill every enemy you meet, but of course, there's a mercy option in the game. Using various acts in your encounters with a monster may lead them to responding differently to you by using different attacks, saying different flavor text as a hint on how to spare them, or just give up after a turn. Those ones are my favorite. And it isn't just the same song and dance for 6 hours, as each enemy is like a little puzzle in figuring out what makes them react and not want to fight anymore. Of course, there are actual puzzles outside of the battles, scattered throughout the majority of the world, but here's the thing. Puzzles in Undertale are really, really easy. I doubt there's a chance that anyone who has at least done a Zelda dungeon will get stuck. For the first area of the game, I get that's the point, and some of the sections in Snowdin are literally there for a gag. But when the game gets serious, you may not even have realized you completed a puzzle, as they're just so straightforward most of the time. I will give credit where credit is due though. The puzzles in Hotland are really well done and may stump you for a minute, but they never last too long as to get the player frustrated. Puzzles aside, I really have to take a step back and admire all of the different styles of gameplay that Undertale has to offer. The puzzles, while simple, usually have a certain charm to them that just lets you get a good laugh or a sense of ease from all the battling. The quote-unquote dating sim parts of the game are a comedic blast. Even the little sections like every encounter with Mettaton being different and the snail race are all things that made me smile during my time with the game. However, I did say the gameplay was divisive with some, and why is this so? Well, you see, Undertale is a very subjective game through and through, and the player's response to the gameplay is no exception. It has its fair share of objective problems, and I will get there. But for now, what is it about the game that makes people lose interest in playing it or just end up disliking it? I believe a lot of that comes from how the game handles itself in the neutral run. You see, in a genocide or pacifist route, you're going down a set path by your own awareness. You literally cannot do this if you don't know either option exists. Why would you know? Sparing is a concept that's not present in a majority of RPGs, and the genocide route requires that you grind out every single enemy, not just those defeated along the way. With Undertale being a relatively easy game in the neutral route, there's no need to grind out enemies, meaning that most players who go in blind will unknowingly take that route. Now, I didn't take the neutral route while replaying the game, in fact I didn't even plan to talk about it, but there are some certain consequences that I must bring up due to the nature of how this review is structured. At least in the easiest example that I could obtain, even killing one single enemy leads Flowey to taunt the player over that monster, telling them that, even though they may have spared Toriel in the end, that single Frogget or Wisdom may have been someone's Toriel. A heavy theme of Undertale is empathy, but to an unempathetic player who doesn't even know they need to be empathetic, this can bother them. At least, That's merely among a large variable of examples and responses to the game. Some may just think it's unfunny or don't like the art style, and everyone has a right to their own opinion. But in terms of gameplay, that's a complaint I've seen come up multiple times. Now as for objective problems, I've brought this up in the past, but despite the fact that I've played this game almost 10 times now, I still hate the fact that you can only walk in this game. Like, you don't walk at a super slow speed, mind you, yet when you have to travel back to a point, in the off chance there's something you want to try out or a side quest you want to complete, it just takes a few minutes longer than it should, and that really does bother me. Even the mechanic of the river person is a bit shallow, as you can only warp between Snowdin, Waterfall, and Hotland, not the core or New Home, meaning that it adds up to some blank space that really shouldn't be there, but is. Also, how you attack is pretty basic. Like, I'm down for any amount of interactivity in my turn-based RPGs, but in a genocide route especially, you're just pressing attack over and over again. It's not like a super strategic turn-based RPG where you can do more damage. In fact, the only way to do more damage is by picking up the specific weapons and armor in each area, and some of them are more hidden than others. But really, outside of those problems, I think the game is still fun to play as long as you keep a specific path in mind. But for those who went in blind, I'm really sorry if the game's impact was lessened because of that. Although, I think that even for the most boring parts of Undertale, the bosses are always there to spice your journey up. A long time ago, I promised a top 10 Undertale Bosses video way back when, but since literally everyone has made one, there's no point now. However, I don't have to worry about spoilers, so let's talk about these guys here. Every single area of Undertale is packed to the brim with unique bosses and mini-bosses, which should be a given since this is an RPG. Each and every encounter has so much character, not only in their designs and dialogue, but also their gameplay. No two bosses in a route are ever the same, as they all have a mechanic that is unique to them. Undyne, for example, has a heavy focus on blocking her spears, almost in a rhythmic fashion, while her genocide fight is a souped-up version of it, with even faster spears and a very crazy attack pattern. Then of course, there's Muffet, which was my favorite fight in the pacifist run. Her little gimmick involves the player moving on 3 layers of the battle area, avoiding attacks as they come on screen. Just like Undyne, the music helps enhance this feeling, as it's sort of like a chiptune swing track. I don't know entirely, but this really is one of my favorite songs in the game, so much so that it's become my alarm noise that I hear every morning. It's a wonder why I don't hate this song by now. Every few rounds, Muffet will call her pet. You have to dodge with some good perception skills and reaction time, and it just comes together really nicely. I love this fight, okay? One of the most well-known fights is Metaton, wherein you shoot at him like an actual bullet hell game. His attacks are all very elegant, and the risk-reward mechanic that makes the fight go even faster is a really neat idea. Also, his fight was referenced in Pop Team Epic. I am skipping over the final bosses for now, but even those guys are awesome. Oh, and I still have my new favorite fight to talk about. Now in the PS4 version of Undertale, there was a special area under Papyrus's sink, you heard me right, called the Dog Shrine. Really, this just served to be as commentary on the tedium of achievements in games, as Toby never had them in the PC release, but I guess he thought this version was his opportunity. Anyways, if you grind out about 350G and donate it 1 coin at a time, you end up with this nice little place that serves no purpose whatsoever. But there are a few good jokes in there. In Undertale on Switch, all of your hard work was for naught, as everything has become old! The Tube Man no longer has fight left in him, the boombox can only play rock music, and the dumpling has just become a regular old dump. But just behind the shrine itself is a new door, and by the end of your journey you can come back here and open it just by pushing apart your analog sticks. Yep, even the build-up is great. And inside is... Best Girl! Best Song! So yes, Mad Mew Mew is the new fight in Undertale on Switch, and it's honestly pretty amazing. As a continuation of the Mad Dummy fight, which you honestly need to experience for yourself, Mew Mew is now their vessel. Or more accurately, this Mew Mew doll is their vessel, meaning that even if you attack them, they won't die. So now we have ourselves a 10-minute boss fight that's both fair and rewarding. At the start of the fight, you've already learned this boss's gimmick, controlling 2 halves of your soul with the analog sticks. The right one controls red and the left controls blue. This is not a fight you're meant to win, but just have fun with. Mew Mew has some hard-hitting attacks as well, but unlike a certain fight that I refuse to talk about, her attacks are always the same each time you play it, meaning that you can actually learn her patterns and get better. Doing this will unlock a few more rounds with faster attacks, and it's reward in of itself to do it right. Even the story she tells is entertaining. Every line has a bit of progression from her rebirth into this form to her respect for Undyne's new relationship by the end of the Pacifist run. This kind of stuff is what I like in Undertale's boss fights, the ones that tell a story. A few good fights do a really great job when they mix their story with their battles, not just one or the other. If you haven't done the battle, I would really recommend you play it for yourself and add that little bit more to your experience. Trust me, it's well worth it. Now, at first glance, Undertale is not the prettiest looking game out there. In fact, the art style is very rough. The stuff done by Temmie Chang is pretty great, but in terms of what Toby did, there are a lot of inconsistencies from one sprite to the next. By no means do I think this makes Undertale a bad looking game, but I know that some people passed it up because of it, which is pretty silly, but not unexpected of a reason. The game is at its strongest when looking at its various areas and effects. Even the battle sprites themselves are pretty good, along with most of the shopkeepers. However, despite their imperfections, there's a lot of charm in each character sprite. I don't know, there's something about each overworld sprite that fits in with its environment, and in some cases adds to the atmosphere of their location. I'm no graphics guy, but I think that a game is worth more than looks, and actually a lot of this game's humor does come from its look. If the art style was super clean, I doubt that the humor would land as well as it does at times. You see, there's a wide variety of humor here, from witty dialogue to a subversion of expectations, and the visual humor, of course. There's bound to be something that lands with you, but the visual humor is by far some of the best you could find in a game. Especially Burger Pants, he's my favorite. In fact, there are so many wonderful characters in this game, which I still find crazy given how little you spend with each of them. From the charismatic Papyrus wanting to join the Royal Guard and make friends, to the geeky and insecure Alphys, each character does so much to add to the experience when they're there that without them, you would be losing a very special part of Undertale. Okay, maybe Alphys wasn't the best example, as her forced interactions can be annoying on multiple playthroughs, but I still appreciate her as a character nonetheless. Even the common enemies do have personalities of their own, my favorite of which are the Temmies because they're so fluffin' cute! And the absolute worst enemy is Jerry because he's not even fun to kill in the genocide route. Forget you, Jerry! But that's not the only aspect of Undertale's presentation, as this soundtrack is still one of the best you could ever get in a video game. I make no exaggeration. Every little piece of music is unique and has a purpose. While you will find various remixes and rearrangements of some songs, the fact of the matter is that it was all pretty much composed by Toby himself. And there are 107 songs in this soundtrack. Yes, some are short jingles that may have only been used in a small section of the game, but literally, there was no need to do this. There is a serious amount of effort that needs to be put in when a song is changed to a different instrument or tempo, and I respect that Toby went the extra mile. Now, I love video game music, especially RPG soundtracks, as a lot of them are just incredible. But while Undertale may not have the same OST length or orchestral compositions, each and every song has a lot of heart and was truly memorable throughout. I know I said in my old video that I can tell you where every song plays, and that was not a lie. There are very memorable and unique moments. I can't name them, of course, but if you played the track, I could pretty much tell you at what part of the game it played. That's when I have to give props. If I can remember even a handful of your songs, I'd say you made a pretty good soundtrack. But when I can recall a majority of your music, then you have made a great soundtrack in my eyes. After a long and arduous journey of 6 hours, you arrive at the Judgment Hall, and the final boss you get will be very different depending on if you did a pacifist or genocide route. The finale of the neutral route is merely a part of the pacifist run, so it's encompassed there. But let's start with the worst ending. The judge of this area is none other than Sans, the only NPC that interacts with you multiple times outside of his home area of Snowdin. I just noticed that when writing the script, actually. He explains that the love you gained in the genocide route was not a positive perception of yourself, but an acronym that stands for level of violence. You all know what comes next? We know what we've done, and so does Sans. Cue Megalovania! The Sans fight is literally the most known and most memed thing about Undertale. Even people who have not or will not touch this game are aware of it, even more so than the pacifist's true boss. And you know what? For all the crap that I had to put up with in the genocide run, I personally found the payoff pretty worth it. You may say it's a cheap fight, and you're wrong. It's actually really well designed considering the difficulty. On your first playthrough, if you don't already know what he'll throw out, you're gonna die. And I myself haven't first played this fight since 2015, so I definitely did get stuck for about an hour. I highly recommend that you stock up on legendary heroes down at the Mettaton Hotel to heal. Otherwise, you're gonna have a very bad time. Ow! What the heck? Like Papyrus's fight, it's all about reflexes, but this time you also have to understand and put up with his admittedly overpowered moveset. Once you get into a groove, there should be no problem getting through the first 14 turns, which is an insane amount for the first half, Toby. Why? And the attacks are so long too, which is pretty crazy. If you thought it gets any better in the second part though, then you definitely have not played this fight. You see, Sans little bone attacks don't do a set chunk of damage. Instead, they hurt you for every frame they touch you. And considering that he even puts up those bones in the game's menu options, that's some bull crud you need to react to or heal up on ASAP. Putting that one minor gripe aside though, I really do enjoy this battle. It may be too much of an adrenaline rush for my heart to do on a common basis, but coming back to it after so long felt satisfying and rewarding. As for his final attack, or final attack, he does nothing. To prevent us from eventually hitting him on a turn, he just doesn't let it become our turn. That is until we force our box over the option and kill him in his sleep. Gosh, this run is sad. After killing Asgore and even Flowey in the throne room, we finally meet Cara. As fate would have it, that child at the beginning was us, but we're not Cara. Apparently, falling on that set of flowers specifically awoke the real Cara's soul within us, as they were buried in the ruins by Toriel instead of one of the coffins seen in Asgore's morgue. Every time we gained HP, attack, defense, love, etc., every time that number increased, we gave Cara more power over our child. With nothing left in this world, all we can do is destroy it and start over again. Huh? Nothing's happening. As far as I'm aware, Toby took out the option to rebuild the world as Cara Incarnate from the console versions. Trust me, I waited to get it to work for like 20 minutes, and I got nothing. Sorry about that. Well, with nothing left in this timeline, I guess it's time to move to the other. Let's finish this off once and for all with the Pacifist run. By passing Sans peacefully, we get to meet Mr. Dreamer properly this time. You see, the way Toriel portrays him is as a tyrant without remorse, but he's just some goofball that doesn't think things through. Really tragic when you think about it, because he could have just taken one soul and gathered 6 more in the human world before the events of the game. Even Toriel points this out. I can't blame him for being written this way though, as just like a real person, he doesn't always make the ideal decision. But after all this, our journey is finally nearing its end. The save points increase in frequency, symbolizing the will and determination we need to overcome this battle. This is something that we can't run from, however, as we either die by Asgore's hand or take him out ourselves. There is no choice to do otherwise, as the mercy option was destroyed. Regardless, the ensuing fight with Asgore is little more than a cranked up Toriel battle. It's challenging for what it is, but you won't have too much trouble if you save the butterscotch cinnamon pie and use it here. Doing so will lower Asgore's defense and attack, making him a bit more manageable. On your last blow, Asgore is on the brink of death, but being the good child we are in this timeline, Cara spares him. Until Flowey comes in, finishes the job, and takes the 6 souls. Son of a gun. The game is now broken beyond repair, leaving us with the only option to move forward, facing the second easiest boss of the game. Don't get me wrong, Omega Flowey is quite the Photoshop spectacle to behold. His attacks are all creative uses of stock and handmade assets that really bring out the demented creativity of Undertale. However, even if you die and die and die, you don't actually lose. The game may restart, but you'll always be closer to beating him than you were before. It's somewhat of an endurance round that goes on for about 4 minutes, but each time you'll be helped by a soul of one of the fallen children. I really love how each weapon the souls use reference what you would find throughout your journey, which is also a little sad in a sense, as many of these children died in some horrible places. But after freeing all 6 from Flowey's grasp, the triumphant music kicks in, masterfully remixing Flowey's theme into something epic. No matter Flowey's tricks, we stay determined, just like in any other timeline, until he is rendered defeated. We spare him, and spare him, and spare him until he runs away. With the souls dispersed and Asgore's imbued within us, we leave the underground, ending the neutral run. As you know though, we're better than that, so if you've done everything possible in the route up to this point, like befriending Undyne and sparing Asgore and Flowey, then you'll receive a phone call from Undyne when you leave New Home. This starts as a small romance side quest with Alphys. Undyne learns the truth about a series I have yet to talk about, and then you unlock the final area of the game, the True Lab. This is where Undertale goes from dark to messed up, like Earthbound Halloween hack levels of messed up. Once heading inside, you're stuck in this place, with only entries written by Alphys and maybe Dr. W.D. Gaster, the previous royal scientist. Each entry details bit by bit about what happens to a monster when it's imbued with determination, and we see the heartbreakingly terrifying results. In order to progress, you need 4 crystal keys to activate part of the main door, and they aren't that hard to find, you just need to walk around a bit. Although there are other bits of story you learn here that are quite interesting. This video room specifically is what I'm referring to, and it turns out that Cara, the real Cara, is pretty messed up in the head, even before the genocide route. They were best friends with Azrael Dreamer, Toriel and Asgore's son, but hated humanity. They hated it so much that when they and Azrael found out that Buttercup's got Asgore sick, Cara decided to consume a deadly dose of the flowers, essentially committing suicide. The next bit is actually after the final battle, but it turns out that Cara wanted to die, assuming that Azrael would absorb their soul in order to control him. By doing this, they would be able to leave the underground, killing humans to start the war once again. Or so it is told. That's so twisted. It really gives you a better understanding of why the genocide route exists in the first place. You are playing as Cara, the real one. The one who hated the world they lived in, suppressing their humanity in order to achieve some sick goal. And you know what? I think that it works to have such an unsympathetic villain. They aren't the final boss, and you can never fight them. You can only avoid their influence. That's how you beat them. That got kinda deep right there. With the True Lab cleared, Alphys confronts us one last time on her own and decides to make up for her sins and tell the families of the amalgamated monsters the truth. On our way out, the elevator malfunctions and we arrive back at Asgore. However, something is different. Just like our first encounter with Flowey, Toriel comes to save us, and all of our friends are there as well. Together. In one place. Oh wait, that's the wrong game. And they're only there because Flowey told Papyrus to do so, giving us the big got 'em. With their soul absorbed, Flowey's able to return to his true form. Azrael Dreamer. Trust me, this is a lot more surprising going in blind. I'm pretty good when it comes to figuring out storytelling twists, but this one was actually one of the better ones. Or maybe I just wasn't as keen on those hints some 3 years ago now. Anyway, this is it. Our final battle with Azrael. A battle between his and Cara's warped perception of reality, and our hopes and dreams. In terms of presentation, the background and effects for Azrael are quite amazing. It's super psychedelic like a Mother background, and I recall Toby saying he was quite proud of it. I would be too. This is a worthy spectacle for a final boss. Now, as for the gameplay of the fight, the attacks are all flashy and challenging to dodge, but the lack of being able to truly die, while cool for cinematic purposes, ruins the tension a bit knowing that you can make as many mistakes as you want. As a last resort, Azrael takes us to his inner world. We can't move or reach our save file or anything. But we can save our friends. One by one they remember who we are, recalling moments from our adventure with them, bringing them back to reality. It's so emotional seeing everything you've done being brought back just one last time. I can complain about what this fight does and doesn't do, mainly the lack of challenge, but I still really enjoy it. Once everyone else is saved, there's only one last person, and that is, of course, Azrael. He fights to the bitter end, but our determination eventually breaks him. He's lonely. He didn't want to say goodbye to us again. And you know what? I find his motivations pretty relatable. It's hard to let go. It's one of the hardest things a person can do, but in doing so, you gain an appreciation for what you had and learn to find something else to love and cherish. This ends Azrael's assault, and he turns back into the child that he once was. He keeps calling us Cara, but that person died a long time ago. This is when our child actually reveals their name as Frisk and comforts the lonely goat boy. To make up for his trouble, he releases all of the souls that he absorbed, and this massive force is what breaks the barrier. Everyone comes back right at the end, and we have the choice to immediately leave the underground or reflect on our journey. I would highly advise that you do the latter and visit all the places that you went through. Seeing the friends you've made and everyone's reactions to their freedom might bring a little smile upon your face. Talking to everyone does take a while, maybe an extra hour or so, but if you're like me, this is a great note to end on. Even going back to the very first screen, you'll find Azrael taking care of the flowers. If you listen to him for a bit, he'll tell you what I told you about Cara earlier, and come to the realization that we are what Azrael thought Cara was. A good person. And thus, with nothing left to do, this is the end of my Undertale journey. When all is said and done, Undertale is a very artistic game. I think that if you don't really play video games or aren't too gracious with a game's faults, then the experience could be muddied for some of you. Huh. Weird that I'm talking about this as some sort of recommendation when I've really been giving an overview. You know what though? I think that despite your perception of games, if you're a fan of storytelling, then I cannot recommend this game enough to you. But even if you know the spoilers, which I would hope you skipped them if you didn't, then I'd still say it's worth experiencing for yourself. The game has plenty of charming moments and characters, plus everything coming together with the music and battle system can actually lead to a very insightful experience. Of course, this won't be a game for everyone. I know I've encountered my fair share of people who would pass this up in an instant, and that would be either because they don't like the gameplay or its fanbase, which on a slightly unrelated note, don't let the bad parts of fan bases deter you from checking out a game you've been at least somewhat interested in. But as this whole video comes to a close, I'd like to compare my thoughts with that of the 2015 me. When I encounter a game I love, it's very hard for me to see its flaws at first. When I said it was the best game I had played at the time, I didn't mean it was perfect, but the experience I got was so impactful to me, so emotional, that it just became something I highly respected and cherished. I will stand by the fact that it has one of the best soundtracks in any video game though. I didn't just make this video to tell you to buy the game, however. That's not the point with any of these videos I try to make. Through my videos, I try to share my experiences, and maybe see if it resonates with people. I'm not really using a script here, it's just a bit of a speaking from the heart. Really, when I put these videos out, it's not that often because, frankly, I'm not a YouTuber. I don't have the time for it, and I'm working on other creative projects, like my game, which I am going to announce very soon, thankfully. And I can't wait for you guys to see it. Hopefully, you do end up liking it. But when I make a video, I put my all into it, with the voicing and the scripting. Even if it's not perfect, I do try my best with each and every video. In fact, this video was originally going to be structured like my Kingdom Hearts videos, and about as long too. The problem with that is that when you try to talk about a 6-hour game for as long as you talk about a 20-hour game, it's not really ideal. It just drags on. So I had to re-script this video for about a month, and then I just kind of lost the motivation for it. But thankfully, I was able to finish it now, and hopefully it was something that you enjoyed, even just a little bit. And yeah, that's really all I can say. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to share more on my projects. Hope to see you then. Take care.